Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you could tell, we will be talking about a potential for a winter storm. Now, I want to make a few things clear before I start this video. So, first off, a winter storm. I'm calling it a winter storm, obviously not because it's occurring during the winter. We are far from winter still, but because of the precipitation types it may bring, which is snow, freezing rain, and whatnot. With usually that's associated with winter storms. Some people, I always get comments around this time of the year when it's not winter yet, and I call a storm a winter storm. They say it's not winter yet, and that makes sense. But I don't go off the basis of the date. I go off the precipitation that's a storm it may bring, which is why I call it a winter storm. I could call it a snowstorm, but honestly, I think both words are equally applicable. So it just depends on what I feel like titling the video that day. Second thing, uh, this won't be bringing snow to areas that typically don't see snow at this time. So if you're living really anywhere east of the Rockies and south of, say, South Dakota, I mean, really east of Nebraska, let's say, because there may be a few chances for some snow across the northern plains. Again, you probably won't see snow. So the Midwest, the Northeast, the Southeast, this won't really affect you. It could bring cooler temperatures, but obviously won't bring really snow into areas that typically don't see snow in October. So again, this isn't supposed to be hype. This is usually in the last 2 years. In fact, we've already had our first snowstorm. So we're a bit behind compared to the last 2 years, but the last 2 years were extreme, so I would say we're around average. But there's still a lot of details with the system that aren't figured out. That's why, it's hard to pinpoint where this will go, what I could title this video without being and sounding hype, right? Because it's not, and I'll explain to you why it's, I think, very, very well grounded. So, yes, it's far out, a lot of details yet to be sorted out. But based on what the models are showing, it looks as if in the next 15 days a winter storm will be occurring, not just across the higher elevations, which we have seen thus far, the snow, but confined more to maybe now even the lower elevations, maybe in areas that are away from the mountains. Classic winter storm. All right, before we get into this, if you guys would like to subscribe, you'd like to support this channel, you like what you're seeing, consider subscribing, consider liking the video, consider leaving a comment down below. Obviously, don't do it just because I told you so. If you actually enjoy it, please support it. I know this was a long intro, longer than I usually do, so please don't get frustrated, but I wanted to make a few things clear before I started out. So, first off, I want to show you the GFS model. So again, we won't be focusing on the short term. I'll kind of jump right into the timeline where this system will be occurring, which is, again, potentially in the long term, but the chances, as indicated by the title, are growing. So notice, we do have systems that will be occurring in the next 10 days, but they aren't snowstorms, right? We do see a bit of rain across the east, the northeast, the Great Lakes, the southwest, some rainfall, but what we want to pay our attention to is the northwest and southwestern Canada. Look, so that's the only part of the United States that's going to be cool. And yes, I am very well aware that much of the United States during this winter storm time frame that I'm talking about will be very warm, and it honestly is probably hard for many folks to believe that why is this kid saying a winter storm is coming if it's so darn warm in my location. And yes, I understand that. I mean, if someone were to tell me a winter storm is coming in the next 15 days and I didn't look at the weather models, I mean, it was like 80 freaking 5 degrees here today in Chicago, and I'm sure that was it was very warm across much of the United States, and it was. So again, it's not everyone that will see this, and it's also not really an indicator of what's to come, even if it's warm right now. Look at this. So we do see obviously snow in the higher elevations. You could almost call that a snowstorm if you wanted to, but again, I won't because I don't want to be calling any little event a snowstorm. But it drops snow. There's another batch of rain that goes through Wyoming, Utah, and that's the other good thing that is beneficial. Regardless if there's a winter storm, which I'm pretty confident there will be, let's say I'm wrong, there will be a lot of precipitation falling here, and there will be some snow, just again, higher elevations if it is a warmer scenario, for example. So that will bring a lot of relief. I mean, some of these areas haven't seen rain, decent rain in years, honestly. Maybe not a decent rain, but a decent kind of season of rain. So hopefully this is kind of an omen of what's to come. I mean, you can see Wyoming get some nice rain there in the drought, into the plains, and just these constant little systems coming through. And look, right there, Colorado seeing some snow, Denver obviously seeing rain, the Nebraska rain, no snow out of that one. And again, we're very far out at this point, almost a week come this upcoming Monday. But look what starts happening. We see a dip, and that is indicative of some chillier temperatures. Again, nothing too extraordinary because it doesn't take much to produce really an anomaly compared to what we've been seeing. If really we've been seeing all but these orange colors. So these blue colors are definitely going to be bringing a rapid change from what people have been experiencing. But look, we do have that trough. The jet stream is strong. We do have a area of rain showers. Again, this is where the models start dividing, and you can see that this GFS model doesn't necessarily show a snowstorm. It obviously shows a lot of activities and quite a bit of high and actually medium to low elevation snowfall. Definitely a bit more than you would typically see in an average pattern. It is a bit cooler here at this time, October 12th, Tuesday 2021. And as we push this forward, you could see that while yes, that system moves away, look what happens across the northwest. We see more activities, more rain, more precipitation. Again, very, very good news for those folks that are stuck with those dry conditions, which is really most of the northwest. Then look, we see rain pivot into California, Nevada, lots of activity. And while yes, this particular model of the GFS doesn't support a snowstorm in the next 384 hours, it does show a lot of activity and the potential for it. So here is, you may be looking at this and being like, wow, well, that you're basing your claim off of a lot of evidence. Hold your horses there. Let me show you what the previous models of this GFS did to show you what the differences are between just one model run. So again, look at this one. It did show that precipitation, did show that snow. It didn't really show a massive snowstorm. Again, it developed these systems a bit far to the east to kind of tap into that cool air. And again, it's all the pattern of these storms that's going to really matter, and that orientation with that cool air, which is very limited for this time of the year. And you can see this one also did not develop one. And I'm kind of trying to show you that I'm not cherry picking these forecasts just off of one model run. And I'll show you one that does support as winter storm. Look at this one. This was today in the morning. Look at that right there across southern Canada. That was a big one. Lots of cool air. That is cold air. That is way colder than you typically see. And I could tell that based off the map, but this should visualize it for most folks. That's compared to average. Again, obviously very warm across the east. It won't feel like a winter storm is on its way whatsoever for, any location of the United States. But yeah, you could see temperatures will be supportive of that, and it's just a matter of case whether or not we see that precipitation overriding that cold air. Notice we do see a bit of shots of cold air, and we do again see a winter storm, but it's a bit further to the north than some models. And let's go back even further. Look what this model showed yesterday in the evening across the Midwest, and this one was an extreme, I would say, outlier because of how east it brought the snow. Look at that. That is, obviously, yes, it's a rather random model. And you can see the next previous three after this one didn't really support that, but they did support the same pattern that this system kind of formed in. And I want to show you now something that I think will change your mind. So at this point, you're probably watching this video and you're skeptical. You're like, how can you be calling a forecast a potential winter storm, titling it a potential winter storm when you've literally shown us 4 model runs that don't have much snow with them whatsoever, and only one of them showed a blockbuster system, which, as you said yourself, is an outlier. Well, let me show you something. So the GFS model is a part of an ensemble of models that has 31 models, right? And usually these models, if you're in the weather community, you know that they're kind of accused for overhyping, right? And the European model, overhyping meaning that they usually get too excited a bit far out, like in this case, I would say. And the European models are usually, and its family, the more reasonable ones. Well, let me show you something here. So this is the newest model run of the European model. And again, we do have precipitation. Let's go out very far out to kind of the end of the medium range. And look, we do have activity, right? Very warm. You could see how darn far to the north it's still raining at this time of the year. That is, again, an anomaly that is rather impressive. But look what happens across the northwest. We see that cool air, we see that storm system, and look, the European develops 2 little individual snowstorms, if you will. One that's further to the north across Calgary, portions of Alberta, and Calgary is a city, for those that don't know, it's not a province. Alberta, and into portions of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, though again, really focusing on most of that snow across Alberta. And look what happens across Utah, Wyoming, right there. Look at that little band of snow that develops. Again, that's not just all mountains. That's a lot of lower elevations as well. And it only goes out this far. But I could assume that if I were to play this another 100 hours, which I can't, it would probably bring decent snow to a lot of these locations because of look how darn cold the European is showing the northwest to be. So yes, we've been dealing with warm temperatures. There hasn't been really a cool off, a cool outbreak in almost a month and a half. But the European model, which again is considered the more reasonable one, shows it in a relative medium range, which is again under 240 hours. Look at those anomalies. That is impressive. Certain areas, I mean, the whole state of Nevada is almost 20 degrees below average. That is definitely supportive of snow across not just the higher, but also the lower elevations. So this is just one model, the European, but again, it has a family of 51 models, right? And this is where truly we start to see whether or not it's actually something that is supportive by a lot of the models, because I'm going to run through all 50 models here and show you what individual ones show in the next 15 days in terms of snowfall. I just showed you two. The GFS by itself didn't really show much of that snow potential. It did show signs of a pattern that is definitely supportive of one, but it just didn't overlap, especially in the recent model runs. Doesn't overlap that precipitation with that cold air, not producing any of that snowfall. The European that I showed you is much more aggressive with that snowfall. It has a scenario that is not, I would say as aggressive as many of its ensembles, which I'll show you in just a second, but it's there nonetheless, and it's more aggressive than the GFS. And now again, the next 15 days, let me show you this. Look, right off the bat, we're looking at the first model run, and look, or I should say the first model ensemble, and look, right there. Look at that. I mean, look at that. That's a massive swath of snow across Montana, Wyoming, into the Dakotas. That is not, the West isn't all just one big mountain. Yes, there are many elevations, there are many valleys, and, areas that's, plateaus, I should say, plateaus and mountains that see snow a bit earlier on than the rest of the United States, but this is a snowstorm that isn't just producing snow because of, it's cooler because it's October in the mountains. It's a snowstorm because it's brought by the atmospheric conditions, a bit of cooler air, some of the mountains interfering with that and bringing that supply of cooler air closer to, or kind of sweeping it down the slopes. But that is impressive. Look at that. Wyoming, Montana, that is over a foot of snow in some areas. And again, let's take a look at some other models. Not all models are excited. Some do bring signs of snow, so regardless, even if this snowstorm doesn't occur, which at this point, again, I think there are growing signs of it occurring, there will be a more of a snowy and wintry pattern. You can see this one doesn't really show a snowstorm per se, but it shows pockets of snow all the way into Nebraska, into South Dakota, again, indicating a cooler pattern, much cooler than what we've been seeing. The second model, also, really much of the same, but look across Canada. Every single one of these models, what fails, or what doesn't fail to impress me is just how much darn snow they show here. It's a lot. You can see this one shows it into California, the Sierra Nevada, that is good. So these three models haven't shown much. Right there, though, boom, that is a decent snow system. That is across the, I would say, the kind of the prairies, if you will, the plains of Wyoming. That is heavy, heavy snow. Even Denver getting in on some of that. Almost, Boulder, Colorado, for example. The panhandle of extreme western Nebraska getting in on that. Look at this one. Across the Dakotas into southern Canada. A lot of snow. Definitely a indicator of a snow system. Look at this one. It keeps the snow chances while they are very big but further inland. So again, it's a bit of a different model. This one a bit less aggressive. This one is completely less aggressive. It does show a bit of snow extremely far to the east, but again, not a lot of it. And I would say this is probably one of the warmer scenarios you'll find across these 50 models. Look at this one. It keeps the snow. It develops that snow system when the European shows it, but again, it keeps it more across the higher elevations and further inland into the west, not really the plains, or just not as widespread with that. But look at this one. For every one that we have kind of conservative, we have one that's really aggressive. And this one shows it not only across the plains and lower elevations, but all the way into the central South Dakota, almost eastern North Dakota, maybe even into, again, portions of Manitoba. So decent amounts of snow with this. Look at that one. Horrendous amounts of snow across Montana. That's a poor word choice. Makes me sound silly, but that's a lot of snow. And again, I'll just run through these more quickly now. Again, not all show lots of snow. Some right there, I would call that a snowstorm. And again, it's also the other thing, because I'm trying to show you this evidence and show you this, but I'm trying to kind of come up with a guideline of what I consider a snowstorm or not. And again, there really isn't, but obviously, if you have something like this, I would still call this a snowstorm, because look, it brings snow into eastern Colorado, into Kansas, into Nebraska, into South Dakota, not just the higher elevations. Now, obviously, when I have something like this, it's a bit harder to call it a snowstorm because it's just occurring across the higher elevations, while it's a lot of it, and it's a bit into some of the lower elevations as well. I'm not as eager to call it a snowstorm, right? I'm more eager to call something like this a snowstorm, just widespread amounts, liberally spread out across various geological terrains. So right there is another scenario, snowy. Here's another one, very snowy. Here's one that's not that snowy. It keeps more of the snow into Canada. Here's one that is not that snowy either, though it does show pockets of that snow, which is again indicative of a cool down, a pattern change. So at this point, all models are showing a pattern change. If you recall, a few days ago, I was saying that some models are showing a pattern change, some aren't. At this point, it seems like all of them are. It's just now that around 2/3 are showing a snowstorm and a third aren't. And you can see, look, there's another one showing a snow system. Here's one that shows, I would call that a snow system. I mean, gosh darn it, that's a lot of snow for even just the lower elevation areas as well. We push this forward, you can see that's a warmer scenario. This one, again, more of a warmer scenario, not really producing a snowstorm, but it is showing a pattern change. You can see lots of snow for the elevations that do see it. And look at this one, brings snow into the Dakotas, just an overall wintry pattern. I wouldn't really say a snowstorm. Potentially would have to see how that kind of unfolds. And right now we're on a streak of 5 to 6 models that really don't show a system, right? But then look, there's one. It shows a system. I mean, that's quite a bit of snow in the next 15 days. And again, there's one that keeps a bit further inland, but it shows a lot across Idaho and into Montana. Here's one that definitely keeps it a bit on the less snowy side. This one a bit less snowy. This one shows some snow and decently decently not elevated areas. There's one. I would say that's a snowstorm supporting model. That's one as well. That's one as well. I would say that's almost one as well. Here's not really one that doesn't. Here's one that really doesn't either. Here's one that supports again a wintry pattern, not maybe a snowstorm. I would say that supports a snowstorm. I mean, gosh darn it, that's bringing several inches of snow into the capital of Wyoming, which again doesn't just sit on a mountain peak. So look at that. That's quite a bit of snow as well. And I know I'm being repetitive here, just showing you model after model, but I want you guys to get a good look at this and show you as many models as I can. So I'm not just cherry picking these models, and I'm just trying to make sense of all these models and the trends. And I could think you could see it as well. A lot of them do show an invasion of snowfall. I mean, if you were to look at the snowfall we've gotten to this date, it's maybe just across the higher elevation areas where some of this 30-inch snowfall may fall in the next 15 days. So even the drier scenarios like this still support the pattern change, just not necessarily a winter storm. And let's take a look at one of these say drier scenarios that still support a winter pattern. So P23, and let's go back, European models, P23, right? And I want to take a look at its precipitation type. I could technically show you each single one of these 50 models and show you what they show in terms of the rain, the snow, but I mean, could you imagine how many minutes that would take? I'd probably have to spend at least a minute per model. That would be almost a 50-minute video. I don't think that's worth it, to be honest. My time, especially your time. All right, let's take a look at this. So we put this forward, and we do see, again, this is the model run that I showed you. It doesn't really support a snowstorm, but more of a wintry pattern. Again, up until this point, there's rain. I mean, at least it's good, precipitation, but lack of cold air, not producing much snow. Across Canada, yes, not so much United States. Maybe a few pockets across higher elevations in extreme western Montana and whatnot. But as you get really, again, towards the medium range, we do see that rain, that precipitation continue to increase, and we also see an invasion of cooler air. Look at that. A lot of Oregon right there. Montana, southern Canada, seeing decent amounts of snow already. This spreads into Idaho, northeastern Oregon, Wyoming, Nevada, Utah, all the way across to Sierra Nevada. Look at that, into southeastern Nevada. That is definitely indication of cooler air and a wintry pattern. And look right there into Utah, potentially Salt Lake City, seeing some snow out of that. Again, large cities we're talking here, not just obscure cabins in the extreme mountainous areas. And right there, Wyoming, Montana. And again, this is a model that I coined not really seeing a snowstorm because it was just a bit further inland. But I mean, taking a look at how widespread that snow swath is, I would argue that's a snowstorm, and that's a pretty good one. So again, I would say the confidence and the chances that are growing. Look at that, Northern California, seeing just tons of snow there, tons of rain, and I'm happy to see that, not because I want winter, but those folks need snow and rain so bad. That is, every little bit they can get, they will gladly take. And again, some La Niñas aren't supportive of this type of activity for California. Last year, at this time of the year, it was only affecting the Northwest, really just Washington and Oregon with rain, and it wasn't even that impressive. But this year, that's why I'm so hopeful about this La Nina this year. Look how much precipitation it's bringing into the Northwest, and again, it's not just secluded to one corner, it's across much of these states. And again, this isn't really about the snowstorm, but more about the climate and the drought relief. I think that if we continue to see this type of pattern well into winter, this could provide some significant relief for the folks here. And look, that cold, that snow, it continues. Obviously, it's not snowing in Iowa or Wisconsin yet, probably even within the next month and a half, but it has to start somewhere, and we're starting to see that cooler kind of outbreak. And if I were to show you the 2 meter temperature anomalies for this individual model, which I can't, you could assume that there would be quite a bit of chilly air to allow that snow falling that far to the south in such lower lying elevations as well. So yes, if you're still not convinced the winter storm is coming and you think this is just kind of more or less speculation, that's fine, and we'll see who's right. In the next 10 to 15 days, I am still standing strong by my claim. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new. And again, these models, like the GFS and the ones that we standardly look at, the GFS, Canadian, and European. The European is agreeing with that to some extent, and it shows that system even less than 240 hours out. And I want to remind you that these models we looked at, 15 days is 384 hours out. So I would say the European is a pretty big supporter of that. It already puts out quite a bit of decent amounts of snow within the next 240 hours. You could see right there in two portions of Utah, Wyoming, 6, 7, 8 inches. Across southern Canada, obviously quite a bit. The GFS, as I showed you, it's the latest model run, is not excited about that snowfall. Really, it is excited about it in the higher elevations, not so much maybe elsewhere. Again, there was a model run yesterday that showed it way further to the east. I would say, again, that's an outlier. And then a Canadian, which also shows a wintry pattern, but not as much, I would say, in terms of that snowfall potential for really a snowstorm or even the higher elevations. But, I mean, you can see it does show signs of a cool-off, and its 2 meter temperature anomalies still are definitely keeping things a bit on the chillier side here. I want to take a look at this. Come on, let's go. 2 meter temperature anomaly, and you can see it's definitely chillier. All right, guys, it was a lot of information. I was talking fast. I had to. I wanted to get as much stuff as I could into this video, and I'm excited. So that's why I was talking fast and maybe a bit disorganized, but I'm wrapping this up. Hopefully you enjoyed, guys. Hope you learned something new. If you enjoy this, please consider hitting it the thumbs up button, hitting subscribe button, and I'll catch you all on the next episode, guys. See ya. Bye.